All right. Well, we're live. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to thank you all for joining this See Tomorrow series produced by the eTourism Summit. Really an opportunity to connect and keep our industry focused on the recovery of what has been an extraordinarily challenging year for the travel industry. And we were chatting earlier that this marks about 1 year since we all went into lockdown, and the travel industry that we all know and love kind of came to a screeching halt. And now we're in an environment where a year later we can take a look in the rearview mirror a little bit and kind of see where we've come from, and then start to really focus on where we're going forward, and how best to move our industry forward. And I think one of the questions that so many of us have asked is, how has the travel industry changed? How much of that has changed forever? And what is the travel industry going to look like when it comes back? And so we're really fortunate today to have 4 members of the eTourism Summit Advisory Board join us and kind of share their knowledge. And the title of the session is really kind of, what are those questions that we need to ask ourselves, ask our colleagues, ask our community, our stakeholders, and ask ourselves moving forward, and how best it is that we can move the travel industry forward. So with that, I just really want to thank you, Jackie, Liz, Justin, and Valerie for joining us today. I'm really excited about the conversation. I know that an hour will go really fast as we start to focus on that. So I think maybe, Jackie, do you want to just do a quick introduction of who you are, what you do, and maybe a little thought of kind of reflection of what a year of COVID has looked like?
Sure, thanks, Will. Hi, I'm Jackie Saunders. I work for National Harbor, heading up the marketing. This year has been challenging, but I think we're headed back in the right direction, so I'm very optimistic for that. I'm back in the office, if you can tell, with the Capitol wheel behind me, and I'm looking forward to a better year for sure.
Awesome. How about you, Liz?
Hi, everyone. So I am Liz Mabe. I'm the digital marketing director at Discover Puerto Rico. I can say last year was probably the most time I've spent at home. And so ironically, actually bought a house because I was home long enough to think about actually doing that, but have been super pumped to get back to the island a few times over the last several months and starting to get back to normal.
Good deal. And Valerie?
Hi, my name is Valerie Bradley, and I'm Vice President of Marketing at Visit Macon. And I think this last year has definitely, shown me that it's okay to kind of slow down a little bit, on the personal side. But then also, as Jackie and Liz has stated, I'm ready to, get back rolling on the professional side and help our city and help promote tourism to our area.
Awesome. And Justin?
Well, good morning. It's still morning where I am, so good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Justin Bressler. I'm the Vice President of Marketing for Visit Denver. Yeah, it's been a year, and on the personal front, we're reflecting on a lot of the silver linings that the pandemic brought, like having my adult children home for 6 months of time that we never thought we'd ever get ever again, and sitting down for dinner for 6 months straight, balancing with all the angst and suffering that was going on. So it was a humbling year, to say the least. And now I find myself filled with this impatience to get going. And I think, that, not to say that we're doing it recklessly at all, because we are waiting for all the signs to point to the fact that we can invite visitors to our destinations safely. But I literally cannot wait to get started on selling as normal as quickly as possible.
Justin, it's so interesting. It's like you. I think that the first 4 months of COVID were a real gift to me. I had all 4 of my kids and their significant others all here at the house, and it was an amazing gift that never would have otherwise happened. But also such a challenging time. I think back in my career on the destination marketing side, and I think probably one of the most professionally rewarding experiences that I had was dealing with in crisis communications and crisis marketing when the state of Florida was faced with a Deepwater Horizon oil spill, and just the ability to act quick and really think different on your toes, that agility, using new data sources, using new new information, building new relationships and new partnerships that came out of that was exhilarating in a lot of ways. And I think in a lot of ways, this COVID has the opportunity to do that as well. I mean, I know that fundamentally the way that we approach marketing is going to change as a result of the travel industry has fundamentally changed, right? So it's not like going back to normal. We're going back to rebuilding our communities, rebuilding our industries, but we kind of have to think a little bit differently about what that looks like and what success looks like. And I know, Justin, when we were talking, I mean, as you talk to your industry partners, what does success look like, near term? What does success look like for 2021 and even longer term when you start to, it's not just year over year growth anymore, right?
Yeah, I think success means how fast can people walk in my front door? And when I think about probably the biggest change that we've seen is how close in trips are being planned now, and how, we used to say, oh, well, let's put it out there because they might come in 60 or 90 days. And while we're still going to engage some of those practices, our partners need the business now. And so we've changed up our campaign cadence. We're about to launch our largest campaign of the year, in what is our traditional spring summer timeline. And we've adjusted it in a number of different ways. But one of those things is it's actually launching later, but it's geared towards more short-term travel, if that makes sense, because we would put it out there for those long lead people. And that just doesn't exist right now. And I will say, overall, industry partners like yourselves, like the research companies, the OTAs have been instrumental in helping us navigate this. So first of all, a general big fat thank you to everybody that is providing data, mostly for free. But like, for instance, our partners at Expedia, we're asking them to provide on a weekly basis the trip planning thing. I call it like the accordion, and like everything has been front loaded. I think 60% of trips are being planned within 30 days right now, but I'm watching to see if that is lengthening out so we can make further adjustments down the road. But right now, everything is geared towards short-term travel, but we are going to be, lucky enough to be able to have that run over a period of months. So we're always looking for that next trip.
Yeah, and I just read today that a lot of the airlines are now kind of going back to their old cancellation policies, which would probably, gave us a little sense of confidence to book a little bit further out when we knew we could cancel with no cancellation charges. But as that starts to roll back, I think it'll further exacerbate the short-term nature of travel booking. So we're going to kind of forever be in that same spot. Liz, how's it going with Discover Puerto Rico?
Yeah, absolutely. We're doing the same thing as Justin, of really honing in on those booking windows. And for us, it's a little bit more of a commitment to fly to a Caribbean island than doing a trip in the mainland United States. And so for us, it's really, we are seeing those short-term, bookings too, where they arrive within 2 weeks of booking, but then we're also seeing 6 months out. And really for a long time, there wasn't anything in between. It's like they were arriving immediately or they were booking way far in advance. And here in the last month or so, we've seen that start to level out and kind of normalize, which gives us hope that we are in terms of rebounding.
Absolutely. And Jackie, how about you?
Similar to Justin and Liz, we definitely are focusing on packaging with the OTAs that is attractive to not only our local and regional markets, but those further drive markets as well. And I think that many DMOs across the country have probably been in the same boat over the COVID timeframe, that attracting local staycation type visitors is part of your overall strategy now and continuing to be part of it as we go through 2021. So, talking to locals in addition to the drive markets is a big part of how we're going to continue marketing too.
And that's a fundamental shift, right? I mean, that was the ultimate no-no in destination marketing for decades and decades. And do you see that lasting? I mean, do you think that that's something that will continue on post-pandemic?
I think our partners have been more receptive to the benefits of it now than they ever have been in the past. And I think it really does help our other partners, our attractions and our retailers. The old model was very focused on the revenue from hotel rooms, but I think there's other revenue to be had or support for partners that we can give. And I think that that's what we focused on. And we want to continue that, through our strategies throughout the year too.
Awesome.
Yeah, similar to for us to what Jackie said, we pre-COVID definitely, since we are a drive market as far as a lot of what our travel is coming from, since we are located in the center of the state. But it's even more important now because of the shorter windows that people are planning. But then also, as Jackie stated, our partners are really coming to us and asking questions regarding tourism trends and how we can assist them with increasing the traffic that's coming into their doors. And so just right now, they are just, happy and hopeful to have that increased visitation, whether it's shorter or longer drives, just to be able to come and frequent their businesses and attractions.
Now,
Yeah.
and you guys are on the front lines of all this stuff. I mean, how much are the communications with your industry partners changing? I mean, are you getting different questions, Valerie, from your partners than you were getting a couple years ago? And are they asking for different support than they did in the past?
Absolutely. I mean, all of our partners, understood and continue to understand the importance of tourism, but they, because of COVID and the decrease in visitation are, like I said, asking us for additional information, when it comes to events and attractions as far as foot traffic and asking us to help them be able to get those numbers so they can have that when they are making plans on what they need to do moving forward. So absolutely, they are coming to us as a resource to help them with some of that research.
Awesome.
Yeah, like Valerie said, I think the research has been the biggest, component that we have been sharing with our industry partners that they've been so eager to see, and to be that kind of one source of resource for them has been huge and pivotal. So big shout out to our director of research, Alicia Valentine. She's done an incredible job of analyzing the data and sharing it with our partners to make sure that they have the right information as they're re-entering the marketplace with their marketing messaging as well.
Absolutely. And I think, Justin, you mentioned one of the things that I think has been one of the greatest examples of the tourism marketing industry coming together. And that is all these research partners that have been providing, I mean, the Longwoods and Miles, the destination analysts, the Expedia Group Media Solutions, the Arrivalist stuff, so much great information that, again, provided to our industry, at no cost, which is incredibly valuable. Mm-hmm. Are you starting to lead
we've been
information more and more?
Well, we've been packaging it up for them in a variety of ways. Every 2 weeks, we send out a newsletter to all of our partners that summarizes the latest destination analysts, the latest Longwoods, the latest U.S. travel, and then our local airport information about returning flights and passenger capacities. And the open rates on it are, better than just about anything we've ever sent out, and consistently so. And we send a lot of communication. We always said at the beginning of this, we want to over communicate to our partners so that no matter whether they choose to, read everything we send them or not, it won't be for lack of sending it. And I think we've proved that a few different ways. But also with those same decks, there's been a presentation. Several people have it in our organization from several different perspectives, but there's been one that I'm maintaining essentially weekly. So every time there's a presentation, I'm talking about the latest sentiment data, the latest booking trends, the latest on our campaigns, engagement opportunities. And so I've never presented more, as I suspect the rest of us have in the last year, because whether it's hotel partners coming together, our marketing partners, the opportunities have been endless, and they're hungry for it. And so we're saying no, we're not saying no to anything right now about getting this information out.
Yeah, and it seems to, it's really creating stronger relationships with the community than we've ever had. And I assume that, Valerie, would be the same in your case as well.
Yes, we, definitely have seen an increase in, like I said, the requests and people coming to us, really looking for us as kind of leading the information and the advice that we're able to provide the community when it comes to tourism. So absolutely. I think within the last year, the relationships have continued to be built and are evolving. And, we are here to help our partners in any way we can as we move out of this.
Absolutely. So early in the year, U.S. Travel Association had several conversations. We actually had Adam Sachs on one of our early e-tourism summit conversations in November, and his prediction then, and I think continues to be, that the first half of 2021 is going to continue to be tough, and we're clearly seeing that, although it's better in some spots depending on geography. But that really early on predicted that the second half is going to be significantly better of 2021, and then 2022 could get us closer, maybe back to 80-90% of where we were in 2019. Do you guys have a sense of kind of what your benchmarks are for kind of short term, the second half of the year, and what we would hope to get to in 22?
No.
Fair enough.
I just feel like it's too unstable right now. Especially as we still see the airline. We get a lot of great visitation from the region, but they spend less. Until we see more convincing evidence that people are flying in higher numbers, like I'm not going to be convinced that. I don't think it makes sense to kind of put a number on a recovery just because our more lucrative customers are long haul from Texas and Chicago and coastal cities more and more. So I don't think anyone's really expecting it this year. So I think I don't know. I'd love to hear if people are starting to make some predictions on what percentage of 2019 travel they're expecting to see this year.
Okay, Liz, Jackie,
Yeah.
what do you think?
I think we're kind of in the same boat as Justin, and we're just kind of like waiting and seeing. We are starting to see, occupancy and things like that uptick. We were well behind the mainland US, so we're just playing catch up sort of at this point. But again, I think it's too early to tell.
Jackie?
I wouldn't necessarily put numbers to it yet, but I think we're seeing some positive signs. Similar to Liz, our hotel occupancy has continued to trend upwards, which is amazing. But the other thing that for us has been indicative, especially having a Gaylord National Convention Center here, is that meeting inquiries for meetings that are going to take place from a convention services standpoint have started to increase within the past 3 to 4 weeks for meetings at the end of the year and for 2022. And so the trend that we're seeing is that meeting planners are positively thinking about meetings happening at the end of the year and into the next year. So for us, that's great to hear, and we're here to support them and hope that those meetings do go on. So,
well, as a meeting planner myself, I can tell you that we're thrilled to get back to real life meetings. I actually was at a U.S. Travel Board meeting last week, and it was done extraordinarily well. We've got our first meeting at the end of May. We'll be in Las Vegas in May. We've got another one in New York in end of June, and then big event with IPW in September, E-Tourism Summit, co-locating there in Las Vegas. So meetings are going to come back. There's no question, and the desire to get together in person is clearly there, and you can definitely see the demand when everybody's trying to renegotiate and move businesses back into the second half of the year. So that's really encouraging. Justin, you brought up kind of the value of visitors. So the long haul coastal visitors are going to spend more than the visitor that drives up from Texas, who's going to spend more from the person that comes down from Colorado Springs. In a session that Steve Paganelli with TripAdvisor hosted on a See Tomorrow series a few weeks back, he had Kathy Ritter, the director of the Colorado Tourism Office, on, and she was talking about kind of the value orientation that the state is going through, and talking about some visitors be either by their spending, or by the time of year that they come, or by the areas of the state that they visit are more valuable than others. And is that something that's carrying over into your planning as well?
Yeah, some of it. We don't have the same distribution problems that the CTO has been trying to address with moving people around the state more, just because we're working with a much smaller geography. And certainly nobody's worried about over tourism right now. We did raise the ceiling. We raised the floor of our household income minimums for all of our target markets for 2021. So, despite my earlier comments about, we still need to get those coastal, those coastal visitors are going to be harder to get, but that's also where we're probably putting more of our money towards those national markets that we ever have, simply because they're higher value. So roughly our campaign is split a third for national markets, a third for target focus markets, which that's what we call things like Dallas and Chicago, and then a third for the regional market, which are like outside of metro area Colorado and the rest of the region, the Wyomings and Kansas and Nebraskas of the world. So it's a comfortable balance for us, and it's a result of some other, funding that we had not being available to us right now through a tourism improvement district that's not available in 2021. So we've reshifted all of our priorities, but we are trying to land the bigger fish while we're still fishing for the smaller ones too.
Right. I know back in Visit Florida, you always knew that a visitor from Chicago spent more than the visitor from Atlanta. The visitor from New York spent more than Chicago. The visitor from London was more than the visitor from New York. And, Sao Paulo was more than the London visitor, and the person from China was going to spend 5 times more than anybody else. So, are you, Valerie and then Liz, are you guys doing the same kind of value proposition and looking at different target audiences than maybe you did in the past, or are you kind of sticking with the historical feeder markets?
No, we've definitely had to make quite a bit of shifts to our targeting, just because the island's restrictions are tighter than most of the mainland United States, and they're still in place. So there is still a curfew. There is a COVID test that is required in order to arrive on the island. And so for us, we're still targeting those direct flight markets. But what we've done is we've created a formula that weighs in the number of COVID cases and then also population. So then we can rank and prioritize those markets accordingly. And so if there was a market that was a hot spot to COVID cases, they would drop in rank, and we would make sure that we weren't spending as much money because we have to prioritize the health and safety of the residents of our island. So something I've been kind of toying with is vaccination rates now, and like, how do we include that in our formula that we've been doing? So if I figure that out, I'll let you know.
That's very, very interesting. Because that's a whole different metric that we never would consider. Do you see that maintaining kind of as we move forward, and kind of the health and safety component, in a post-COVID world?
I think so. I think especially for us, because we are not out of the gate yet in terms of the restrictions that we have. And so we have to be thoughtful of that for now. And then, the lion's share of our funding that we're spending at the moment is from CARES Act. And so there are health and safety restrictions that are tied to those dollars. And so it makes perfect sense.
Awesome. How about you, Valerie?
Yeah, so we have been, in our targeting, have been focusing a little bit more on our historical data, definitely really digging in as far as the drive market. But something that we have been experimenting with, I should say, as far as targeting some of our older demographic when it comes to like vaccination kind of tourism a little bit. We had decided, because for our group tour market specifically this time of year, and we still are seeing that right now. We have our Cherry Blossom Festival, and it is an event that is attended by some of our older demographic. We see a lot of that, those individuals that come through. So some of our marketing was reaching out to some of those areas and some of the demographic that we knew that maybe have already had the vaccine. And so, targeting our messaging, and we actually have seen some of those results as far as conversions that have come through. So that was something that we were able to try, and something that we had not done before. And so we were already starting to see some success with that, but also leaning into some of our historical demographics as well, and really being as targeted as possible, because like everyone has experience with reduced resources as well. So really being able to do that specifically in the Atlanta market with some of our video content.
Very cool. In at eTourism Summit in October, we had Brian Solis from Salesforce talk, and he had one line that I absolutely loved. And he talked about life as we knew it, BC before COVID and AD after disruption, and we're kind of somewhere in the middle right now, right? We're kind of still dealing with the pandemic, but we're all focused on what we do after disruption. So I wanted to shift the conversation, Valerie, to messaging. And we talk about CARES Act funding and all the money that is eventually a ton of marketing is going to come out from destinations. And there's this fear that I've always had is everybody going to come out with art, culture, shopping, dining, fun for the whole family messages at the same time and wash everything out. So I'd just love to kind of get a sense from all of you on kind of how messaging has shifted kind of for the AD period, and what's different, and kind of how you're thinking differently than you would have maybe in 2019.
For us, all of our messaging has led with the health and safety messaging. We worked with several community partners to come up with our Making It Safe campaign, and so all of our messaging includes that with the logo. But specifically, as far as what we are highlighting, it's definitely more of the outdoor experiences. Whereas we highlighted that before, but we're definitely leaning more into that now, and also, kind of our music heritage as well. So those are two of the things that we are highlighting right now. As events come more online, we will definitely highlight those as well, because normally pre-COVID, this is our busy event season, and along with our music messaging and some of our historical attractions that we will be highlighting, we would also be ramping up our events messaging. But like I mentioned earlier, our Cherry Blossom Festival, which is really the first major event since COVID that is happening, they moved everything outside and have also been leading with their health and safety messaging as well. And just with the traffic that we've seen so far, it's been pretty well attended. So, that's something that, we are definitely happy that we're able to promote that messaging, and just will continue to lead with that outdoors and safety messaging as we move forward.
And Jackie?
Yeah, similar to Valerie, we really are focusing on that outdoor experience, but from a messaging standpoint, the safety and security, I think, we've all been participating in these research calls to learn about some of the intelligence that's out there, and consumers are still looking for that information. So it will continue to be at the top of our messaging. But something else that we, over the past year have started to incorporate and really think about, and I think will be part of the DNA for DMO marketing for the future, is being culturally conscious of what's happening out there in the community, and making sure that, we're aware and addressing that. And I think that's a big part of messaging and content these days as well.
And that's a whole different challenge. I mean, that's a significant challenge for all of us we have to be so much more aware of everything that's happening in the world around us than just doing tours of marketing like in the old days. The same thing for you, Liz, on the messaging for Discover Puerto Rico?
Yeah, so for us at the height of the pandemic, we were actively telling people not to come to the island, which is just like so counterintuitive to everything that I have ever done in my entire career. And so our messaging was rooted in all in good time, because we still wanted to remind consumers that we would be there for them whenever it was time to travel again. We have now shifted to it's time to plan or it's time to book, and part of that messaging is reinstating, what we are doing as a destination to build that confidence that they'll feel secure to come to the island, and what we're doing from a health and safety standpoint. So that's what's running actively now. Like I said, the lion's share of our investment is CARES Act. So that is the requirement of those dollars. So.
Okay.
And I think we're doing it too. I think the health and safety messaging is maybe a little bit less overt, because number one, I think consumers are expecting it. When I say less overt, I guess we're not leading with like, here's where you can learn about all the safety measures that the city and the partners are taking, but it is front and center in that we are still showing masked servers. Like if you're a consumer and you're walking around, you're gonna have a mask on. If you may be seated without a mask, but your server is going to have a mask on. And I think that's an important thing, both because it's the reality on the ground. I think it instills confidence, but it also might dissuade someone that is thinking about coming to Colorado that isn't interested in following those procedures. And I think that's part of us being responsible organizations. And we've talked about that before. So I have no problem having someone look at my advertising and say, "Oh, I don't want to go there. I don't want to wear a mask." I'm like, great. There's plenty of places that you'll be welcomed in. And this is just not one of them. So there was another comment earlier too, sort of what Valerie was saying about events, and I saw a question come up in the Q&A about the biggest product loss, and it definitely is events, and having events be offline. It's both for our regional audience, that's probably the biggest motivator for them, where they're coming in for the latest festival or food festival, art festival. Having Red Rocks, our big concert venue, offline. Probably pulls 400,000 or 500,000 people out of the market because they get such a big draw from around the country and around the world. So hopefully that will start to come back. There'll be an announcement hopefully in the next couple of weeks about a return of some of those things. So Valerie, I'm very jealous that you guys actually are having an event right now, but we're still kind of in the middle of winter here. So people aren't quite come into outdoor events in Colorado yet, but that'll change in the next few weeks.
You know, I had the good fortune last weekend. I got to go to the Players Championship in St. Augustine and watch a golf tournament, which was amazing. And the masks and they PGA did an amazing job of keeping the masks and socially distanced and all that. But boy, it does feel good to be back and see a live event. So I guess the other part of messaging outside of the health and safety messaging is kind of the consumer psychology that you are seeing and how you're looking to play. Because I think fundamentally, we are all changed humans from when we were 2 years ago. And as a result, I think the way that we react to advertising and to marketing and promotion is going to be different. How are you guys looking at kind of the changed consumer?
Yeah, we're going to do a new campaign. It's called Seniors Gone Wild. We are not. I think it's about really messaging about connecting with your loved ones, and they may be the same people that you were in the house for, but I think as opposed to really focusing on the product, I think we're talking a little bit more about what the product does for you, knowing that everyone is thinking about wanting to get out just out of their house and have same experiences. And so it is about reconnecting with your loved ones, whether it's people you haven't seen or people that you have seen in the setting, in these great settings that the city offers. But it's about, and that's what we see. We want to reconnect and we want to relax. That seems to be what the research is telling us. So that's what we're giving them.
Yeah, like Justin said, I think that emotional sentiment is something that we're playing on too. One of the lines in one of our TV spots says, like, it's time to feel comfortable about being free. Like, we've all been trapped in our homes for so long. And so now you're able to go out and about and enjoy outdoor products and do all of these things that maybe you weren't able to do before.
Yeah, same for us. I mean, we definitely want to lean into the emotion and the feeling and, a little bit of the excitement of being able to do these things now that more people are vaccinated and feel a little bit more safe to do so. So we are doing the exact same thing as Liz and Justin stated.
Awesome. How about you, Jackie?
Same on that emotional connection and connecting again. Something different also that I wanted to point out, and it actually was on the Destination Analyst call on Tuesday, is that we are seeing that desire to support local businesses. And so anytime that we can do that through our messaging and content, we are. We actually did a promotion where we partnered with a brewery to sell a beer within our restaurants and businesses, that some of the dollars went back to the workers of the restaurants. And so we had really great reception with a program like that. So looking to do more things like that.
Very cool. That's such a great example of partnerships that come out of tough times that end up long-term having really compelling value propositions. I love the conversation about the small businesses, and I do think that is something, again, as we kind of go back to the socially conscious messaging, that small businesses and supporting local is going to be kind of with us forever as well. Don't you think? Lots of nods. All right, cool. Good stuff. One of the other things that I want to get a sense from you, and I guess, so we're destination marketers out in this space trying to figure out and plan for the second half of the year. I wanted to just get some advice from you all as you start to say the triggers and the kind of information that are informing your decisions, and knowing that we're all moving much faster than we've ever moved in the past. At least that's my perception, is that we kind of have to react a lot faster, and we have to base that on information of some sort. What are you guys leaning on in terms of the information sources and triggers for messages?
I think for us in Puerto Rico, really what we're kind of waiting on is for some of those restrictions to start rolling back. And so Leah Chandler, our chief marketing officer, is actually working on kind of a roadmap of like, if this, then that. So like, if the curfew goes away, then like, what do we do in terms of a marketing standpoint? And so, creating that sort of path of like, as restrictions are lifted, what do you feel comfortable as a destination doing is something that we're looking at right now.
And that's really more for the community, right? So what's the community
Right.
ready for, almost,
Yeah,
for triggering
exactly.
what you're ready to go out and
Exactly.
market with. That's
Working with your local partners, really, it can be a big influence. We're in the state of Maryland, but just outside of Washington, D.C. So, we definitely are trying to align with what restrictions that they have. And then our own county experience, Prince George's as well. I think that they are keeping track and trying to lead the industry within our area, which is great. And then other associations like the Restaurant Association in the local area too. They're working with the restaurants to help them with messaging and content and direction as well. So.
Awesome. Cool. Well, one of the programs that I forget where it was, but I listened somewhere to somebody talking about kind of the changes in DMO staffing structures and things like that as a result of COVID, and somebody mentioned that the next round of leaders like you all in this room, the next round of CMOs is gonna probably come from that community manager, social manager ranks, because of these are people that were maybe a couple levels down in the org chart that became the point of the spear moving forward or through the last year. That just the lessons learned there is pretty remarkable. I'd love to kind of get a sense from each of you kind of how that social media community manager, how it worked in the past, what you've learned from that, and how kind of this last year's informed your future in the social space.
Yeah, so you go ahead. Justin.
No, you go ahead. Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, and I think our social media manager had one of the toughest jobs of the last year because, there was a lot of angst, even whether to put social media messages out there, but, through the depths of the summer protests and all the awful responses to that, just some really abhorrent responses to that, she had to kind of read every one of them. And they were less a bellwether about how the community was feeling, but more they were a realization that there's a lot of misperception out there. And I've talked on other webinars too, that cities were a really hard sell in 2020. And we saw a lot of the issues that were maybe unique to urban areas hit us really hard. And what's hard is that those issues sort of persist. And every time we put a message, I don't care if it's about culture, dining, whatever, everyone says like, it's filthy, downtown Denver's awful, and all the windows are boarded up. Well, they're not. And it's just, there's the political polarization that's happening there where cities that maybe are perceived to be a little bit more democratic. And if we're relying on visitors from another area, I think there can be some knee jerk, and I'm sure it goes both ways too. And not to get political on it, but that's just the reality of how the perceptions are going out there. So like I said, just we're not really using it as a community monitoring as much as figuring out what are some of the issues that we need to address in some of our other channels, and showing clean downtown, showing windows that aren't boarded up, that can help overcome those misperceptions.
Yeah, for us, shout out to Astrid, who is our social media manager. She was a rock star last year. I know she had a pretty rough year in 2020, but she killed it. She did a great job. For us, we had to pull out of a lot of our advertising at the time. And so social was really the only way that we were communicating with consumers. And it really, I think, became an escape for a lot of people. We were doing the virtual vacations and like giving people something to look forward to. And it was about 2 months that we did those virtual vacations every single weekend. So Astrid literally worked for 2 months straight to host those every single weekend. She did a fantastic job. And then again, like Justin was saying, there's just, all of the comments that they have to read, and I think they learn a lot, and they are really the pulse of the destination within the organization, because they are on the front lines, communicating with consumers, communicating with the residents. They are the ones that see it firsthand, where the rest of us are a little removed from it.
Yes, for us, I want to give a thanks and shout out to our web media manager, Elliot Fernandez, because similar to what Liz said, we had to, stop all of our advertising, I'm sure as many other did, and just heavily went all in on our social media advertising and video content and all of that. But we were also able, through that, to find a way to assist community partners, community organizations that we normally had not had a relationship or worked on an initiative with them. For example, we partnered with a local organization, Friends of Making Music, to be able to put on Facebook Live concerts with artists and then help because we know artists were suffering during this time, not being able to book gigs. So we were able to help them make some money, but then also have a service to people who were following our channels and be able to listen to some great local musicians. So not only, you know, was our social media avenues the pulse of us being able to find out what the conversations that were going on in the community, but also allowed us to be able to partner with other local community organizations and to provide a service and to assist in any way we can that we had not had an opportunity to do before.
Awesome.
Same for National Harbor. I have to shout out to Jessica Ketteritz on my team who did a wonderful job. You know, I think following along with what Valerie was saying in regards to creating content that maybe, you know, you hadn't thought of in the past, reaching out to those community partners to help them create their own content and then leveraging that content within your own channels. It really was true partnership during those times, especially when you can't necessarily leave the house or get out like you used to capture that content. And the creativeness that I think probably all of our teams focused on in trying to come up with those ideas. And then along the lines of what everyone else is saying, that reactive component of being really on the ball to, you know, look at those comments and react within time and be conscious of how to, I think was a big part of it too. So, you know, kudos to all those social media managers out there.
Hey, Jackie, to that end, do you see the job description for social media managers has changed? I mean, it will change from what it would have been a year ago as a result of all the lessons learned from your social people over the course of the last 6 months?
I really feel like content creation always has been a part of it, but I think new content and working with partners to help them develop content that you can then use. I mean, UGC has always been a big part of it as well, but with people not getting out, you know, creating virtual videos, as Liz was saying, and virtual concerts, as Valerie was saying, those are, you know, new things that we probably all have not done in the past. So coming up with ideas or coming from different industries where those types of things were being used, I think would all be assets for all of our DMOs.
Hey, Liz, how about you? You came up through the ranks of the social manager. How do you
I
see the job
did. That
looking
was my
to you
first
versus-
job. Yeah, in Branson, at Explore Branson, I was a social media manager right out of college. That was my first job. So I have a ton of respect for social media managers just because I know what the work is, and I know you are literally attached to your phone 24/7. But yeah, I think it's an important skill set, and I think it's really great for anybody to learn and get the chance to read those comments and engage with consumers on a day-to-day basis, because I do think it shapes how you approach marketing moving forward.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe we were doing it differently. I mean, my social media manager does not really engage with a lot of these conversations, you know, and I suspect that you guys also pick your spots too, and that would have been really important. So, you know, we do respond to, you know, true customer service type inquiries, but when people are going off about whatever their issue is, I'm not going to feed that bear. And, you know, we would get these really interesting questions. Like people would say like, you know, I'm thinking about staying in Denver, but I'm really concerned that, you know, there's going to be a riot while I'm downtown. Can you tell me where I should go where there's not going to be a riot? Like, yeah, you know, in Fantasyland. I don't know, just like it was a weird thing. And so like, we're very, very careful when we engage on social media. But as I said, it does inform, I think someone said it's like puts a finger on the pulse of what's going on and what people's concerns are, but there's only limited opportunities to do that constructively. And you don't want to get sucked into a conversation that really has no resolution. You're not going to convince anybody that they're, you know, about that their opinion is wrong. Like, oh, Denver's not great. I'll come then. So, and I don't want to put my social media manager through that. Elise, I was the only one who didn't say her name. So Elise Chivers, great job.
Awesome.
To Justin's end too, I would just mention, I think that really falls aligning with the social consciousness piece. So with your social media manager, they need to be aware of what's going on out in the world and how to handle that. And I think that that's a big part of it too.
Valerie, what do you think on the evolution of the job title of community manager?
Yes, absolutely. In addition to what Jackie said, we had a lot of community conversation within our area regarding the Confederate statues and the removal of the Confederate statues, and it definitely, our web media manager, viewing those conversations that are going on, sometimes on our pages, but then also on the marketing and advertising side, just making sure that whatever video or pictures that we're putting out there, being very conscious that we are, knowing the conversations that are going on and making sure that, those things are in the background and all of that. But to Jackie's point, it definitely, for the person who's in that position, definitely need to know the conversations that are going on in the community around those social issues and being very aware and sensitive and, and like Justin said, knowing when to step in and when not to step in.
Yeah, does it feel like, I mean, obviously CEOs have always had a very big political job in the destination marketing business, but does it just kind of in the conversation, it seems like the kind of politics is now, and being kind of aware and being neutral seems to be a really big piece. Although, Liz, you all actively, you actively just want people that are going to only come and they're going to follow the rules. Justin, you mentioned the same thing. If you're not going to follow the rules, we don't need you. So I mean, you have to kind of take a stance a little bit more than probably you had to do in the past.
For sure. Yeah. Like even in our regular inspirational posts, if you go visit our Facebook page right now, on every single post, we're saying, hey, like you've got to wear a mask whenever you're on the island, or hey, you've got to take a COVID test within 72 hours of arrival, or you have to quarantine. And like we link them to more information. So while we're sharing, the inspirational, travel planning sort of information that we normally would, we have to marry it together because these are the rules in order to visit our destination right now.
Yeah, and that goes back, earlier in the discussion, we were talking about doing local advertising, which we also will be doing this summer for the first time during this time period ever. But that's based on a collaboration that we're having with the city, and it's going on around the same time as our national campaign will be launching, and we're having a press conference with the mayor, and there's a very good chance that we will talk about the local campaign, but we will not talk about the national campaign, because I'd rather 6 months from now tell them how well it did and how much economic impact it created and how many jobs it created, rather than have to explain up front. There's one of those things, there's a misperception about bringing people back to the city. We feel like we can do it safely, but this is probably not a time to talk about a multi-channel campaign that's inviting people from all over the country to the city, just because I think tourism is still misunderstood as far as the impact it brings. So I'd rather talk about the results than have to fight through any pushback from the local market. So right or wrong, that's what we're going to do.
All right. Valerie, any thoughts on that?
No, I mean, I think, definitely everyone, had great points, and I don't have anything to add regarding that.
All right. So I wanted to shift to the logistics. So Justin, you're about ready to roll out a new campaign. I think Liz, likewise. I think Justin, you're going to be 100% digital for the first time. I wanted to ask about kind of your teams. I mean, you've got less money, in some cases less staff, probably more work. And talking to ad agencies, I know that those that are working in the tourism space are doing multiple iterations, right? So it's like 10 times the work on their side. How are you structuring your relationships internally and with your agencies? Any different than you did before? Because the reality is there's less money, more work, and it's happening much quicker.
I don't think there's huge changes in structure right now. We also have 2 people out on maternity leave right now, so we're kind of thin. But no, the roles and responsibilities that we said, this is sort of why we do it, so that when we do come to these crisis points, that people can still do their jobs. But there's ongoing conversations about who's got a little bandwidth and pushing projects around here and there that you might not have worked on then. But and some of the coordinators on the sales and services side maybe have a little bit more bandwidth now with not as many leads rolling through. They've been kind of marshaled into some, just some sort of easier, leisure tourism activities. But by and large, our channels are in place, and I kind of like that we had them strong enough so that they can withstand this.
Good.
Yeah, we're kind of in the same place as Justin. We were fortunate that on the marketing side, we really didn't have to furlough or, lay off any people. So we were lucky on that end. On the sales and services side, there were some furloughs, but they have been brought back. But again, they have some additional bandwidth because they're not doing site visits or things like that at the time. And so our marketing bandwidth, like our pace has not stopped. We have been like full steam ahead for the last year. So we've been able to kind of pass off some projects to them so we can focus on these more immediate needs. But our existing, advertising, we have more money than we had previously, but again, it has strings that are attached to it. So we have the CARES Act funds, and then we have CDBG, which is a disaster relief fund from the hurricanes nearly 3 years ago. And so we're actually getting ready to launch that campaign here in the next week. So
that was only three or four crises ago.
Just a few ago.
Right. Jackie, how about your team?
I think the trend is for us in the marketing side is kind of all hands on deck. A lot of the campaigns that we've done over the past year have been much shorter time frame in planning. So I know many other destinations have not maybe even done advertising, but we've continued to help based on the requests from our partners that really were looking for assistance. So that planning window is shorter, and we really, everyone has pitched in, and everyone's been nimble to try to cover in spaces that they maybe not have before, as I think both Justin and Liz said. And so as we get into the summer and fall, we now have that breathing room to plan further out for our fall and holiday campaigns that we feel like we didn't have during COVID.
Awesome.
Yes, for us, we were fortunate in that everyone was still here. We didn't have to furlough anyone on our team or our organization as a whole or in our marketing team. And we, as Liz said, seems like we have been just as busy even during COVID. Although, we shifted priorities to different things, we still were full steam ahead as far as different projects and things that we may have been able to push up due to pulling some of the advertising and just shifting priorities. And as Jackie said, going into late spring, early summer, feeling from the research and seeing that a little more confidence from the consumer. So we are planning some bigger things ahead as far as campaigns that will help us hopefully be able to increase our visitation and help our businesses and partners within our community.
So you guys talked about kind of obviously building these campaigns. What are your timelines that you're starting to look moving forward? I mean, are you planning in quarter in, was it annual plans? Now is it quarterly plans, or is it monthly plans? What is the time frame that the way you guys are looking at marketing the second half of the year?
I'm through June 30. That's as far as I've got. So we're doing it really kind of on a quarterly basis.
I would say same for us. We are looking to like end of July. That's about as far out as I want to make plans at this point.
We're planned out through the summer, but with a lot of flexibility built in. So right now our plan goes through mid-August, but can change in any minute.
Same, yeah.
All right, so that being said, do you think that cadence, that pace, that kind of shorter term nature of planning will continue through 21 into 22? Is that kind of the new normal? Yeah, good stuff. Well, one of the things that I totally neglected to mention when we were talking about community managers, everybody did the shout outs to your social media team, and I wanted to make sure everybody on the call was aware of the new Emerging Tourism Stars program that eTourism Summit has launched this year. It's a great award. I encourage you to go to eTourismSummit.com and nominate those rock stars. And we really want to celebrate some of these people that really rose to the occasion in the last year, and again are going to be the future leaders of our industry going forward. And as a part of the folks that are selected that program, which is generously sponsored by MMGY, we'll get a scholarship to eTourism Summit in September in Las Vegas, which is co-located with IPW. We're going to do some mentorship programs and carrying some people to make sure that they can kind of continue to evolve and grow their networks in the destination marketing community. So I certainly want to ask you all you give them a shout out, make sure you nominate your rock stars, and we'll celebrate them there at eTourism Summit in September. So, I tell you, an hour goes really, really quick. I want to thank you guys again so much for your participation, your insight, and the guidance, and all you're doing for the travel industry. I think maybe wrap up with kind of a conversation. The travel industry has fundamentally changed over the course of the last year. It's going to continue to evolve. There's no question about that. I just kind of want to ask we know the industry's changed. I'd just love to kind of wrap up on kind of how it's changed you kind of personally, how it's changed you as a marketer, and how it's kind of changed your approach to thinking about destination marketing. And I guess, Jackie, do you want to kick us off with that?
Sure. I think, it's been a theme the whole call, just being able to be more nimble and reactive when needed. I've been at National Harbor for a year and a half now, and I think that being reactive had always been something that we wanted to move away from. We wanted to be proactive, and actually at any of the bureaus that I've worked with in my career. And I think it's interesting that we were all put into a place where we had to be reactive and we had to act quickly. And it was a big learning experience with such a big crisis. And I think we all probably have learned so much. And it helps us in our development of skills in marketing, not only for DMO, but just in products in general. And so I think that's been a big learning experience for me. And I think I'll take that forward for the future.
Awesome. Liz?
Yeah, exactly what Jackie said. I think that flexibility and just nimbleness. So like not even just being flexible, but moving quickly after you've had to like pivot your priorities to accomplish what you need to do. But yeah, that flexibility is huge. And a type A planner person it's not a strength of mine. I like to know what we're doing 6 months out and a year out, and have all of the ducks in a row. And 2020, it was just all up in the air, and really just had to build that from scratch. So yeah, being able to be flexible and just nimble at the same time,
and being able to making decisions
quickly.
I was going to say, yeah, I was going to definitely add on to what Jackie and Liz said. And, as even part of that is making the decision and then being okay with it if it didn't necessarily turn out the way you thought it did, but learning from that and then being able to quickly make another decision and quickly shift from that. Because I know for me, as Liz stated, so used to, having the insights and having the research and having time to really think things through before pulling the trigger and making a decision on certain things, but having to be reactive and make those decisions and then be okay with, this time, it may not have been the right direction, or it may not have gone exactly the way I thought it would, but that's okay. We're going to learn from this and then quickly move on and just not, get hunkered down in that. So that has definitely been a lesson for me that I will carry on professionally as well as personally.
And that was the exact opposite of kind of how we were trained, right? We're trained to not make mistakes. We're trained to, get it right because we had to go back and report to it. But just the lessons learned and even training up team to be able to understand it's not all, everything we do isn't going to be perfect this year, but let's just make sure we do learn what worked and what didn't work. And a little ability to fail is not a bad thing.
Yeah, I got really good at that this year. I was just humbled by the entire experience because, we kept working through a lot of our peers were out of work, but it was just really hit home how fragile this industry is, how big of an impact it has, and how desperately it was felt when that went away. And it's been hard to see other industries that thrive during this time with no, discredit to them. I mean, if you're working in, at Amazon, if you're part of a streaming service, all these online things, with the difficulty it has been for this industry to come back, while so many other industries have thrived throughout the pandemic or have come back faster than we have, we can't take it for granted. It makes me love the industry even more. It makes me want to travel more. And it makes me think that every time I travel from here on out, I will just not take the experience for granted, because we've seen what can happen. The smallest of things creating the biggest of impacts for the entire world. And we took it on the teeth more than just about any other industry out there. So kudos to the industry. We did it. I think we did everything that was asked of us during this time, and can't wait to be part of the rebound.
And you know, Roger Dow had a great quote that he said, you know, the only reason these virtual meetings that have been successful over the last year is because of the in-person relationships that we've been able to develop over, you know, our careers, and that is just so powerful. And it makes me so thankful for the relationship we have with you all, your support of eTourism Summit, and sitting on the advisory board, taking the time out to kind of help keep our industry together. And that's what we're trying to do with this See Tomorrow series, which will be every 2 weeks between now and September, when we hopefully see you all face to face, albeit with some masks and social distancing, but it will feel amazing to get the industry back together again in September, alongside IPW and the other events that we've got going. So again, thank you guys so much for your time. Thank you for your insight and your guidance for the industry, and thank you so much for your support. It's really, really much appreciated. So thank you guys. Talk to you soon.